morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today, it's time to take another look at Incineroar. And it's very important that we take another look at Incineroar. Now, I am not always right. In fact, as some people will like to point out, I've been wrong about many things about the Pokemon trading card game. And whenever people think I'm sounding a bit too much like a know-it-all, I do like to try and point out some of my failings. And one of my biggest failings was Incineroar GX. I was absolutely convinced that Incineroar GX was going to be a great card. It's got 250 HP, and for a single energy, 10 damage, plus 20 more for each of your benched fire Pokemon, which with a full bench gives you 130. Now, to be fair, when this was released, we did actually have Skyfield, so you could potentially go absolutely nuts and have 8 bench Pokemon, and then be doing 170 for a single energy, and you got 250 HP, so, you know, max potion. It's great here. And then there was a big problem. There was a huge problem with Incineroar. And one of the biggest problems, you couldn't use any draw Pokemon. Tapu Lele, it's not a fire Pokemon. 20 damage, gone. Oranguru, not a fire Pokemon. 20 damage, gone. And then things like Pidgeotto, which we got more recently. Not a fire Pokemon, 20 damage, gone. Every time you play a non-fire Pokemon, you are capping your damage output at 20 less. And that means you're not drawing any cards. You're not playing any draw power. That's a pain. Now, it did get slightly better in Celestial Storm when Macargo got released. Macargo essentially said, put whatever card you like from your deck on top of your deck. Sounded like fun, right? Well, the problem is you need to draw it. And I did show you a winning Incineroar list. I'll pop a link in the description that used this and then played a bunch of stuff like How and Professor Kukui just to have the drawing. It was, to be blunt, ladies and gentlemen, not entirely ideal. But I have always said with Incineroar, if we ever get a draw engine, which is a fire Pokemon, we need to look at this again. And incidentally, I feel the same way about Naganadel GX and Ultra Beast Pokemon. Because Naganedel's got an ability for a single colorless energy, which does 20 damage for each of your Ultra Beasts in play. But again, you got the exact same deal because you don't get the 10 base. But it is a stage 1, not a stage 2. Other than that, same attack. But you're taking away damage when you play draw Pokemon. So Naganadel, we're going to have to look at again if we ever get an Ultra Beast which draws. But today we have to look at Incineroar again because we've got a fire Pokemon that draws. There is a whole bunch of new fire stuff coming out in the near future, but for our purposes, probably the most exciting one is the Salazzle. Salazzle's ability is literally Heat Factory Prism Star. Once during your turn, you may discard a fire energy from your hand and draw 3 cards. That's redonk. And here's the thing, right? You can still play Heat Factory Prism Star. You are still absolutely allowed to play Heat Factory Prism Star, and if you're not playing one of these in your deck, I will be looking at you a little bit like you're a bit weird. And now we've got the draw power. Now we can play an entirely fire deck, where we're doing 130 for a single energy, and then taking advantage of stuff like Max Potion. Now, you can't really use Ace Roller here because you're a stage 2, but you know, you don't really need to, because firstly, Mr. Mime is stopping that anyway at the moment. That is not the guaranteed proposition it used to be. And secondly, Max Potion works just fine. So now you've got a little bit of Heat Factory Prism Star, but you've got Salazzle and you've got Macargo. And now you can play an entirely fire deck and you're rolling. You can even go Oricorio as a starting Pokemon here, because for a single fire energy, you get to search your deck for, you know, 3 basic fire Pokemon and put them onto your bench. Incidentally, you are then allowed to evolve them up the very next turn, because they're on your bench when you start your turn. So you can evolve up into Macargo, etc. And look, you can't play Alolan Ninetales. Generally speaking, for stage 2s, we play Alolan Ninetales. We use Alolan Vulpix to search out the evolution Pokemon. Then we evolve into Alolan Ninetales, grab ourselves Rare Candy, and evolve up that way. Can't do it, not fire Pokemon. But if you can get a Makago and a Salazzle, bearing in mind, right, Makago and Salazzle are stage 1 Pokemon. They're not the most difficult things to get into play. And if you can get the pair of them, and I believe you absolutely should be able to get the pair of them, then you're going to set up. And you're going to find these stage 2s. And here's the thing, right? Once you've got a couple of Incineroar out, all you need is a max potion and an energy here and there. And you've got Makago and Salazzle. I have played way more Incineroar than any sane man should. And one of the biggest issues has always been consistency. And my opponent just starts Guzmaing up my Litten, and then I lose the game. And I just never get rolling. What we need is to be able to get them out consistently, and now we can. So Salazzle's a big deal, but we're also getting Welder, and Welder helps phenomenally here. Welder is a supporter card that we're getting in Unbroken Bonds, same as Salazzle, which says attach 2 fire energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon, and then draw 3 cards. So it's actually as good as how that we were already playing in this deck because of Makago, except you get to attach 2 energy from your hand while you do so. And the big advantage of this is that now all of a sudden Incineroar's second attack becomes viable. 80 damage, flip 2 coins, 50 more for each heads. Well, on average you should hit 1 heads, and that's just as good as a hustling strike with a full bench. But if you flip 2 heads, that's 180. 180 is already enough to get stuff like Blacephalon and Rayquaza, and then with a choice band you're up to 210. Oh look, there's a Zoroark. Oh no, my mistake. He's been one-hit KO'd by an Incineroar. This could work. Then, of course, the GX attack, 200 plus burn. It's not amazing, if I'm honest with you. Basically does 220 as a base, because burn does 20. So, I mean, look, with a choice band, you get a one-hit KO on a Pikarom. That's about the best thing we can say about it. And let's face it, in the next set, we've got Buzzwole and Pheromosa coming, which at the moment looks like the best deck over in Japan. It is seeing a huge amount of success. The last big tournament in Japan was won by Quad Buzzwole Pheromosa. I'll pop a link to that in the description so you can go and check it out and see what it's all about. I mean, it's a phenomenal card. That's what you need to know right at the beginning. It's crazy good. And, of course, let's not forget that Celebi and Venusaur is a pretty good deck. And in the next set, we're also getting Lucario and Melmetal. And, oh, look. Now we're hitting a whole bunch of really relevant Tag Team GXs that are seeing a lot of play for weakness. So it's still got the potential it's always had. It still does decent damage for low energy. And it still has the ability to abuse Max Potion. It's just now a whole bunch more consistent than it's ever been before. And the second attack is all of a sudden viable because we've got ways to get the energy on there. One of the other things I adore with Incineroar is Victini Prism Star. Now, this has been out for a while. Victini Prism Star for 2 energy does as much energy as is in your discard, times 20, and then you shuffle all the energy back in. That could do a lot of damage. And incidentally here, I'd actually probably use Flareon's Tag Team GX attack most of the time over Incineroar's. You don't have to, obviously. But you attach 1 energy to an Eevee, evolve up into Flareon, bearing in mind you've got to bench it and then immediately evolve it or you lose damage with Incineroar. Then Flareon does 20 damage for each energy in your discard. And then next turn, Victini does 20 for each and shuffles them back in. And yes, one of the problems with Victini was that it was 2 energy and you didn't want to play counter energy because you couldn't really play that with Incineroar. Well, great news, ladies and gentlemen, because Welder is helping Victini out. Now, we're also getting Fire Crystal that lets you pick up 3 basic fire energy from your discard and put them into your hand. That's pretty gosh darn awesome. It's a little way away. This won't actually be in Unbroken Bonds. It will be in the next set. But we are getting Giant Furnace, which lets you discard a card from your hand and search your deck for 2 fire energy, which obviously combos beautifully with Welder. It's literally Viridian Forest, but you get to get 2 energy, not 1, and they both have to be fire. I'm still way too in love with Incineroar. But I am willing to admit at this stage that maybe it didn't have quite the effect on the metagame I was hoping. But I'm also telling you that when Unbroken Bonds comes out, between Welder and Salazzle, all of a sudden, we are fixing a lot of the problems. Is it a better option than just playing Reshiram and Charizard Tag Team GX? Maybe not. Is it a better option than Flareon GX? Maybe not. Does it have huge HP for a 2-prize Pokemon doing good damage, abusing Max Potion, etc.? Yes. Yes, it does, ladies and gentlemen. And I think there's a little bit of potential here. But I would very much like to know if you think there's some potential here, or whether you think I'm doing that thing again where I overrate it because it's Incineroar and I love him. Incidentally, I should also mention there is a new Incineroar coming in the set, which means that all of your attacks do an extra 30 damage. Probably should have mentioned that a little bit earlier. And if you're playing Incineroar GX, then you're playing the evolution line, so it really is absolutely no hassle whatsoever to play one of these. You can only use one of these abilities at once, incidentally. And then all of your Pokemon, not just Incineroar, all of your Pokemon do an extra 30 damage to the active. So yeah, as well as talking about Welder and Salazzle, probably should mention Incineroar as well. So yeah, let me know what you think about this in the comment section. Go nuts, but please do remember the rule. Be nice, would you? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about other games that don't have Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.